What is up, everybody? Welcome to Season 4 of the Overseas Famous Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Owens. Joining you today in the middle of a snowstorm. Our interview this week is with the great Nick Stauskas, Sauce Castillo. It was a lot of fun. Now, I've known Nick for a little bit of time, in terms of the basketball community. And so I've known him personally. Very good human being, great hardworking guy, and we got him on the show today to talk. He talks a little bit about the process 76ers. He shares his experiences overseas and what overseas athletes kind of are compared to what he thought they were, and what the overseas game was like. Talked a little G League, and then we just got into some weird shit with like Bitcoin and stuff like that, but it was a lot of fun. The process 76ers thing that we talked about was just my favorite, because I think Philadelphia fans are going to be, it gives you an inside look at kind of behind the scenes, what was going on, what these players thought during the process, because the process was something that just Sixers losing over and over again, and people were, excited. Some people were happy. Some people were pissed, but some people embraced the process to get these draft picks. And Nick kind of takes us through his experience in that scenario. I also, the whole entire setup I have now, it like wasn't working. I tried to like mess with buttons. I'd have someone come in and like recalibrate and refix everything, but it was all fucked up. So when I did interview Nick, I interviewed him without a microphone. It was like me and the computer, so the audio is going to sound different. I also jacked up the bass in the thing just because I don't know. People think that, I feel like when the bass is real low, you get that like smooth talking. I want my voice to sound like sexier, if that makes sense. But me saying the word sexier kind of default makes it sound not so sexy. But I wanted to kind of have that deeper voice to kind of calm people down and kind of let people hear what we're talking about. So that is why the bass is jacked down low. If you don't like it, let us know. Because the second interview we did this season, I also didn't have this set up. So if you read us after this episode drops, let us know what you think. And you can say if you like the bass or don't like the bass. It's up to you. But it's a great show. Without further ado, Nick Stauskas, former 76er, Sacramento King, Brooklyn Net, Cleveland Cavalier, overseas basketball player, and current NBA G League Grand Rapids Gold player. Nick Stauskas interview to start off Season 4. Season 4 starting off. Here we are. Nick Stauskas, one of the best shooters the game has ever seen, joining us on the pod today. Overseas Famous Podcast. Nick, you've been everywhere. We talk about this a lot. You could write a book about all the shit that you've been through during your career. But first, welcome. It's great to see you. Great to have you on the show.
What's up, Kev? Always a pleasure chopping with you. And thank you for having me on today.
So like we said, I mean, your situation has been wild in terms of just everything. We'll get in your NBA career a little bit later, but just recently, you playing in the G League in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and you go to get called up by the Raptors, and then you get there and you take a COVID test and it's positive.
Yeah, that was some crazy timing, especially because I had gone the first year and a half of the pandemic without getting COVID, and was, fully vaccinated, up to date with, the booster and everything. And then, I get this call up by the Raptors, and they're actually playing in Chicago. So I met the team in Chicago, get to the hotel and, take a COVID test when I get there. And they didn't get the results till the following morning, which was the day of the game. And they texted me in the morning. They're like, "Hey, we're so sorry to tell you, but like you tested positive last night." And the only silver lining with that was there was actually 3 other guys who had come in on 10-day contracts as well, because the Raptors were short so many players, and all those other guys also tested positive. And so they had to cancel the game. So the silver lining was, I was like, all right, well, at least I'm not like the only one, like that's out, and like, a bunch of guys are getting it. But it was just crazy. Like I hadn't played in an NBA game, since like 2019, I think. And, I go like 2 years, and finally the day of my first game back in the league, I test positive for COVID, and I was like, oh man, I just can't catch a break. So a 10-day quarantine. And then luckily, on the 10th day of the quarantine, when I finally got out, I had Miami who was willing to sign me to a 10-day. So, I was able to kind of jump in and kind of get right into that. But definitely would have been cool to play for the hometown team, just because I grew up in Toronto. That had always been a dream for me to, play for the Raptors at one point. So who knows, maybe we could still make it happen one day in the future. But yeah, it's just been a crazy year with all the COVID and the protocols and stuff like that.
The hometown team I think is so big. I remember when I was working out with the Sixers, you played for the Sixers, and I remember that feeling. I was like, holy shit, like if I make this team, like this is the team I grew up watching, wanting to put on a uniform. It's such a different feeling. I mean, trust me, playing in the NBA is like the greatest. It's awesome. But to kind of have that opportunity to play for your hometown team, that's super crazy.
Yeah, not a lot of people get a chance to do it. And everyone who I do know a couple of Canadian kids, like, Corey Joseph, Anthony Bennett, guys who are from Toronto and were able to play for the Raptors. And like, everyone just says it's like a dream come true, and it's like the best feeling, especially, going to a home game and you have all your family and friends in the stands. Like, there's really nothing better than that. So hopefully we can make it happen at some time.
Yes. My fingers are crossed. I mean, you've dealt with other shit too, like immigration has always been like an issue because you're Canadian.
Yeah.
And COVID, like everything shut down. And I don't think people understand that. Like we talk a little bit with the overseas guys and stuff, like how immigration is tough and, they can't come home for the holidays and stuff like that. But when the borders are closed and you play in America, but you technically are from another country, like things get crazy with the immigration, and you've had to deal with that twice in training camp so far.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, the issues really became during COVID, that everything was just so backed up. So, a visa that a team could apply for, a couple of years ago would normally get processed, 24, 48 hours. And now it just became a thing where sometimes we're waiting for 1 or 2 weeks. And it's tough because a lot of times it's just, your case is in a stack of folders on someone's desk, and it's literally just someone taking the time to go through that stack of papers. And just everything in general, the world is kind of slowed down a little bit because of COVID, and I've experienced that on the immigration side. Thank God I have I finally got my green card approved and everything. So finally on the other side, and I'm grateful to be here legally and permanently now. But yeah, it was been a crazy process just to get to this point, between the visas and the paperwork to the application to get this green card, the interview process. There was, a lot of steps that went into it. So just kind of grateful to be in this position now, and kind of now have the freedom to work and live wherever I want, which is nice.
It is. I mean, I know you spent a season overseas, and most overseas guys, you don't even think about that. You don't even think about what immigration is going to be like. You just fly to another country and assume like all your shit is taken care of. And yeah. I never even thought of it until, we were talking, this summer and stuff, just how crazy it was, because I just fly overseas and then I land and I'm like, okay, I'm here to play. Like all my shit's taken care of. Where's my apartment? Let's go. Just to have that where you're kind of in the same mindset, like I'm here to do something, let's go. And then it's like, oh, by the way, there's all these hiccups with that. That's like, it's just another mental struggle dealing with, basketball, which is already, a big thing, to kind of have to deal with something that's just so you don't even think it should even be a problem. And it's just frustrating.
Honestly, it's like, it sounds silly, but it's like, it really shouldn't be a problem. Like it should be a lot more straightforward. And especially for someone like me, who's been living in the US now for like 13 there would be no questions, no issues. But I guess, you know, the government's got to do their due diligence, and, you know, customs, immigrations, everyone has to do their job. And unfortunately, those jobs have just been slower than they normally would be. So, but yeah, I'm thankful that I finally kind of got most of that stuff behind me now. So, hopefully no more hiccups or no more bumps in the road.
That's awesome. Nick, the most famous, and it's funny because I have a friend who's we've talked about this. Like, I have friends, you know, we're all Sixers fans. We grew up, you know, in the city, and, you know, during the process and stuff, which we'll get into in a little bit, but like the Nick Stauskas fans are everywhere in Philadelphia. And I think
I don't know.
Listen, I know, like, I talk to a lot of people, and they're just like, every time that I've told them that I've worked with you and stuff like that, they're like, oh my gosh, Nick, you know, Sauce, like, this is crazy, you know, and everyone brings up the YouTube video where you hit, you know, 70 out of 76 in the rain, 46 in a row. That's like a crazy video, because first off, there's so many factors. I watched it again. I've watched it multiple times. I watched it again last night, and there's like a lot, like the even the noise, like, it sounds like the guy who's doing the camera is, you know, like eating chips while he's doing it. There's like a lot of rustling. The rain is falling. I'm like, and I get like antsy because I'm just like, okay, 5 minutes. And, you know, when we work out, like, I'm trying to like fly and get that ball to you, and I'm watching. I'm like, let's go. Like, we only got 5 minutes. We only have 5 minutes. So, do you think that's something you can replicate now? I mean, I can answer that, but like, I want your answer. Do you think you can replicate that now?
It really just depends. Like, that day I was in a good rhythm and was able to kind of, like, again, I started making 46 in a row, so it kind of became easy to follow through with it. But I think the toughest thing for me in terms of replicating that is, like, I'm somewhat of a perfectionist. So if the first 30 seconds goes by and I've missed like 2 shots, I'll just be like, no, starting over again. As you know, like, when we work out, like, make 8, you know, doing a certain move into a shot. If I like make my first 2 and then miss my next 3, I'm like, all right, no, back to 0, like, start over again. That's just how I am. So, that was like one of the last shooting videos I've ever done, because I always felt like I was such a perfectionist doing them. Like, again, if I missed a couple shots early on, I would just be like, I'm not feeling it today. But maybe one day, if I get like in an actual gym, because those are all filmed outside too.
Yeah.
So maybe like in the gym, because wind was always a factor in, though. Like, that one, it was raining, so the ball was wet, it was cold outside. So maybe I got to do it again in the gym, and we'll see. But also, that was high school 3-point line. I don't know if I've ever done one shooting like NBA threes. So maybe that's my next video I got to do.
It's, I mean, now I've watched you shoot, and there's times when I'm just like, I will rebound, and you kind of start, you know, you're like thinking, and you're just kind of like, okay. And then, you know, other thoughts are popping in your head, and you're like, okay, I have to make sure I get this ball to him. My back hurts. Like, you know, my old ass is like running around, and I'm like, I'll catch it. And I'm like, we've been going for a while. I don't think he's missed in the past like 5 minutes. Like, I've rebounded for you, and I'm like, I don't think we've missed in the past 5 minutes. Like, we've been going through for 5 straight minutes, and he shot probably, you know, 70 shots, 80 shots. And I was like, I don't think he's missed. Like, I don't think he's missed.
It's no, and those kind of workouts, like, it's, you know, that's probably what I enjoy most about them is, you know, just getting to rep things out to the point where you get into such a good rhythm, and it does feel automatic. You go through those stretches where, you know, 2, 3, 4 minutes goes by and you haven't missed. And at least for me, that's what gives me, you know, my confidence, and you know, allows me to perfect certain shots, certain moves. So yeah, for me, I'm a big rhythm guy. I'm a big feel guy. So anytime I get a chance to be alone in the gym and, you know, get 30, 40 reps in a row, you know, really repping something through, that's kind of where my confidence in my game comes from, or it stems from, at least. So, you know, again, I always appreciate you being in there and repping things. I try not to miss too much, so you don't have to run. I try to just, you know, swish them all, easy rebounding, and go from.
I do appreciate that, because, you know me, like, everything hurts now, and I feel like everything I do, I just feel like everything hurts. It's just a mess.
Well, there's days where I work a little harder than others, but for the most part, we try to keep it pretty straightforward. So,
Well, you're talking about, talking about videos and stuff. You do, and I think this is like so commendable. And we've talked a little bit about this, but like you stay off social media. You're not like a big social media guy. That not a lot of guys are like everything they're doing is on social media, and you kind of stay off it. Is there a reason why? Is it just to drown out the noise?
Well, it hasn't always been like this. I think I've been a big social media guy up until recently. And me and my wife always laugh about it, but like this new era of like TikTok and stuff, I truly don't understand it.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that are funny or that are like perceived to be funny, they're like honestly over my head now. Like I don't understand the humor. I don't understand. And to me, I think the one thing that initially got me off of social media this year was I do believe it's getting to be like a little bit fake. Like there's just so much that's being posted that's not necessarily real, or it's being staged. And I don't know. I was spending a lot of time on it and realizing that it was either not productive or in a way was like, it was just like causing me to not be happy because I'm like subconsciously comparing myself to other people, or like, just little things like that. And then getting off the first couple of weeks was probably the toughest part, because I started realizing what a habit it was to like press the area of my screen where the Instagram app was. Like I know app and replaced it with another app. I started opening that new app because it was the place where Instagram was, and I was like, damn, it really was like it was like wired in my brain that when I opened my phone, I clicked there to open the app. But then 2-3 weeks went by, and then all of a sudden I just like completely forgot about Instagram. Like I would go the entire day, and all of a sudden I'm like not even thinking about checking it, not even thinking about, what my friends are doing or what they're posting. And then there was like a certain sense of calmness that came with that I enjoyed. And yeah, it's probably been like, well, I think I got off of Instagram in September. So it's a couple of months now since I've been on. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't know if I ever will get back on. Like, I think there is some good to it. And like, I enjoy keeping up with friends. That's the one thing I miss, is I feel like I don't know what's going on in my friends' lives as much, which I don't like. But I'm also I'm like a person where it's like, once I start something and I have a streak going, I don't want to like break it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this isn't the first time that I've gotten off of social media. Like last year I was in the G League bubble and I did the same thing. For like 2 or 3 months, I was off of Instagram. And then when the bubble finished, I downloaded the app, and then I was like, I had like broke the habit of checking it, but then slowly but surely over last summer, I started being on it for like 2-3 hours a day again. And like the habit came back, and I was like, all right, maybe I'm just done with it. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get back on one day. Maybe I won't. But for now, I'm enjoying my time off of social media.
That's good. And I think like as a player too, it's nice to kind of shut down. Like there's a lot of cretins out there who just want to, knock everything that a good athlete does. Did you ever experience that, like with, when you're going through and playing a game, were you just like, I'm not even checking social media. I'm like, I don't want to hear what people are saying. This is like not fun.
Yeah, for sure. There was a time like when I was playing for the Sixers, I actually enjoyed Twitter a lot more than Instagram. And this was around the time that my first year in Philly, we were 10-72. So we were really bad that year. And I enjoyed Twitter a lot, but then every time I would go on, good game or bad game, like Philly fans were just like ripping, but like the whole team, they were just ripping us apart because we were terrible that year. And then it just got to a point where I was like, damn, it's just negativity every time I'm on here. But then I was also getting my news from Twitter. Like I'm like all updates and stuff about what's going on in the world, I'm getting it from Twitter, but I just felt like I couldn't even see that stuff without seeing all the negativity that came with it. And so I actually got rid of my Twitter like 4 years ago, and then was just like, hey, I'm going to stick to Instagram because I didn't seem to get as many negative comments there.
Yeah.
Also, I'll just say, I think in general, like Philly fans can be tough. Like, I don't think I think Philly's probably one of the harder cities to play in as an athlete in terms of like dealing with that the negativity coming through social media. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely some times where like you finish a game and you're like, I was like 0 for 6 from 3, and I'm like, ooh, I can't check Instagram after this game. I already know what they're going to be saying about me.
It is crazy just being a Philly guy and growing up in the area and these Philly fans. Like there is, and it's as as a kid, you're kind of like, wow, like you're just a Philly fan. And when I became an athlete and started playing professionally, I was like, you realize like how dickish it is. And then I'm like a huge, like I'll go on Twitter right now and like fucking bash the assholes who are like really pressing. And there's like guys who work at radio at like the 94.1 or WIP, and like they're just like they have an agenda and they're trying to push that agenda. And it doesn't matter. They don't humanize these guys, and they push this agenda. And all, like Philly fans, I feel like there's smart Philly fans and there's just dumb ones who just listen to everything these talk radio guys say, and they push this agenda. And I've seen it like last year with like Simmons, and like there's always an agenda that they're pushing to try to like Wentz. Like it's frustrating because as an athlete, you're like you're dehumanizing what athletes do, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I think just like a lot of guys on Twitter just think that they can do, like I know fans, Philly fans especially, like they think they can do what you do, which is like the most ludicrous thing in the world. But they dehumanize you enough where they think that like, well, I can do what you do. Like it's just like, no, you fucking can't. Like this is the most ridiculous argument I've ever had in my life.
I used to this was like right before the time that I like deleted where I stopped going on Twitter. But like I actually started like messaging fans back, and I would be like, all right, like one-on-one, put $1,000 on it then. Like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Invite you to the Sixers facility, bring $1,000 with you. I'll bring 1,000. We'll put your money where your mouth is, and let's actually play one-on-one. And then everyone's like, oh no, I was just kidding, man. Like, like you just got to be better. Like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, everyone's always a tough guy until you call them out. And then once it comes down to it, they're like, or once you respond to them, just be like, oh man, I was kidding. I love you. You're great. Yeah. I mean, just like almost they just want that attention of you responding.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of why I've lost interest a little bit in social media. I'm like, it's all fake anyways. Like everyone would change their opinion just like that once you say something to them. There's
like so many pictures. Like I follow, because I like the overseas famous stuff. There's so many athletes that I follow, and I look, and there's there's so many weird pictures that people take, and then that they're staged, and you're just like, no one sits like this, like no one does things like who's wearing that there, like it's like so many things. So then I like was just like with the book, like I've been kind of systematically like making these ridiculous stage picks that like obviously are just completely ludicrous. Just to kind of see like what people would say. And it's like weird because I've gotten like a bump in followers when I started doing this. Half of them do think that I'm the wrestler though. I think that's like, I got verified on Instagram, and like legitimately immediately I have like 2,000 new fans who are just tagging me in wrestling posts all the time. So that's a lot of fun.
I think you could pass for a wrestler. You actually might be a pretty good wrestler. You're pretty pretty big.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, I think you could pass for a wrestler.
I thought so too. I was like, that would be fun. I feel like my body is already broken down. They were like, okay, here, do this, and then fall on your back. I'm like, what? Wait, what? What do you want me to do? I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, I'm the low back. I think I'm right there with you. Once I'm done, I'm right.
So let's go into. We'll come back to the G League. Let's go into like the process Sixers. So we're talking about the fans. You played with in the process Sixers, and it was you have Joel Embiid coming up, but like sitting out a year, then Ben sitting out a year, and you have this team where you guys were NBA players. You're going out and fighting every game. You don't give a shit. You're like, this is my life. Like I'm playing to win every single game. But people didn't really feel that way. How was it? Take us through your mentality when you kind of stepped on the floor with this group of guys, like knowing that it's like people are talking about you guys tanking and stuff like that, but you're sitting there like, I got shit to do.
Well, it's crazy because if you look at a lot of like those process teams that we had, if you look at it on paper, a lot of those guys are still in the NBA and on big time deals. Like Rashawn Holmes, TJ McConnell, Ben, Joel, Nerlens Noel, like
Grant's got something, doing a great job in Detroit right now.
Yeah, like Jeremy Grant, another guy like who's gonna get paid over $100 million this year. So like you look at it from that standpoint, and we weren't a bad team on paper, but you put that team together while we're all 20, 21 years old. Like, yeah, we didn't have any veterans in the locker room. Like, we didn't have anyone to really like show us the ropes or like guide us or give us any kind of knowledge. We were kind of just going out there blindly and playing as a bunch of young guys. And again, we could compete with teams, but it was like once the fourth quarter came and it's time to lock in mentally, that's where we didn't have it. And we would blow leads or last 2 minutes of the game, miss defensive assignments, turning the ball over, and all of a sudden, a game we could have won, we threw it away just by, from inexperience. So I think that was, but again, no one ever told us like, hey, we want you guys to lose. The roster was just constructed in a way that it would be very difficult for us to win. For example, in the process days, one of the things, this is like a prime example of the roster being constructed to lose. The point guard, between injuries or whatever, we didn't always have a lot of point guards. And this is partly why TJ McConnell got his first chance with the Sixers to play in the league and has made the most of it. But I remember there was a time where because of injuries, TJ was our only point guard that we had available on the roster. And here TJ was as like a rookie on a 4-year non-guaranteed deal. Obviously at that time, not a big time name. And I was backing him up as like the backup point guard. And that's in the NBA, especially, like that's not my position. And here I was playing like 20 minutes a game at point guard. And I had, like Avery Bradley guarding me full court. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to win games with me playing point guard half the time. So it was like, from that aspect, it was like, yeah, we were kind of like set up to fail.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, like it was a blessing for a lot of us young guys because we did get experience that we not have received, had we been on a team with more veterans, more experienced players. So I guess that was the positive of all of this was, win or loss, we were all kind of like, man, we're gaining great experience. We're getting to go up against the best players in the world every night. We're improving. But the losing became extremely frustrating because, obviously 82 game season, you only win 10 games. Like, damn, like that's a lot of losses. Yeah. And the mentality was the frustrating part where, we weren't very confident in ourselves. So anytime we were going up against a San Antonio or a Golden State or any like a Cleveland or whatever, any of the higher level teams at that time, as a group, we didn't have the confidence that we could compete at that level. So coming into the game, it was almost like we were already losing because we didn't believe get over that hump. And it showed, even sometimes when we were winning in the third quarter, all of a sudden a couple of mistakes happen and we're down 10, 15 points. And it was just, I think that mentality kind of played into it a little bit of us not fully understanding who we were or what our strengths were at that time. But I guess that's why they called it the process.
I think you hit on something that was really interesting, and you kind of showed both sides, the positives and negatives. You had a vetless team. So I know, like how, when you have that real vet there who's just like, listen, young fella, like, this is what you got to do. This is where you got to go. This is how you have to handle yourself in this situation. This you have to handle yourself off the court, on the court. It's huge. So not having that vet definitely hurts, but you kind of gave the positive, like, well, shit, I was playing too. Like, so yeah. we were getting burned. Like we were getting minutes every single game. We were just balling because there was no vet staying in our way. But like even that end of the bench guy, I always said, like, you need that end of the bench guy, like Udonis Haslem, like playing with the Heat for a long time, like staying that wisdom, even though he can't give you the minutes anymore, he's proven he can do it. Everyone looks at him as a great leader. You kind of need that. And that was something that I always thought, like, hey, there's got to be a spot where you can bring in some vet, even if he's just there, like even if he's just there in practice.
Yeah, and we did that first year. Elton Brand actually came
came out. That's right.
And like it was like halfway through the year, they signed him to be like a player coach, specifically to mentor Jahlil Okafor, because he had been our like draft pick that year, and with Joel as well coming back from injury. But again, it's like, you know, Elton couldn't play. Like at that point, he was like, he'd already been retired. So like couldn't give you much in terms of, you know, being on the court, but he's like the end of the bench guy, kind of always, you know, in our ears, giving us some knowledge. But like, I think the teams that are great to play for as a young guy is, you know, the teams where their leaders are their best players, and, you know, having guys that are going to be on the court with you, talking to you. Like, for example, I was just in Miami on a 10-day, and I have like a new respect for Kyle Lowry. Like that guy, like as a leader, unbelievable. Like his communication on the court as a point guard, getting everyone together on the game plan offensively and defensively. Especially for me being on a 10-day contract and not being fully up to date with, you know, what the team's trying to accomplish. You know, I truly enjoyed playing with him. It made my experience super easy because I always had him in my ear, you know, kind of giving me directions, giving me, you know, just pointers on where to be, when to be ready, you know, when he was going to help me on the defensive end. And I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, I wish I had played on a team like this early in my career. Like that would have been, even if I wasn't playing, just seeing that level of communication and like being locked into the game plan. I'm like, damn, I could have like, that would have been something I could have learned from and grown from. And it's tough. A lot of that is determined by, you know, the organization you're drafted into or the team you're traded to. But yeah, seeing a team like Miami, like the culture they've built, the leaders they have on that team, like it's no surprise why they're one of the best teams in the league, and Spoelstra kind of leading that. Like I think he's an amazing coach, and I just enjoyed playing for them. Like my time, even though it was only 10 days, like I have a new respect for that team and their whole organization.
I think Damian Lillard kind of said the same thing. There were a lot of NBA guys are coming out and saying, like, listen, without the G League, like shit would have shut down. You guys kept us. So I think there's like a lot of those guys, like the Lowrys and on those teams that really have been like, hey, you know, like this is how it is. Like we're going to show you the ropes. Because when you came in, there's even still, you had a few guys. It wasn't just you who, it was like a few guys who kind of went up with you into Miami. Same with Toronto. So you need that like vet presence, and it must have been something like a change for some of these NBA, you know, these star guys to be like, all right, shit, if we want to keep rolling, I got to work even harder now. When it's kind of that dog days of the year where you're kind of like, all right, let's just get this going.
Yeah. No, it was cool though, and like they really embraced it. Like every day, like before every game, Kyle would like look at all of us. Kyle Lowry would look at all of us, the guys that were on 10 days, and he was like, yo, I'm gonna need y'all today. Like, you guys, this is a huge opportunity for you. We're gonna get you going today, blah blah blah. But like, I was like, damn, like we're on 10-day contracts. Like he doesn't have to be like he doesn't have to be doing that, but like he was really in our ear trying to help us every game. And that's what made me be like, damn, this guy's like, he's figured it out from a mental aspect, the leadership, the like knowing where to be, when to be. It was really impressive. And, you know, I've played against Kyle, but it wasn't until being on the same team as him that kind of gave me that new appreciation where I was like, man, this guy's definitely got it figured out.
You've played, you know, you were in the on the Sixers. Joel's there, you know, obviously rehabbing from injury. Was that something that you kind of saw? I mean, he's MVP of the league. If everything stops right now, his season is the best. He's one of the like breaking record. He's going to go down as like one of the best Sixers seasons ever, and like one of the best big man seasons ever. Was that something you saw from Joel, like when you were in, you know, with the Sixers? Did you see that, or like he was very new to the league? Did you see the potential in him?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like my second year with the Sixers, he played 30 games, I think.
Yeah.
I was like technically his rookie season because he had missed his first 2 years. And like in those 30 games, he was like averaging 20 something points and 10 rebounds. And it was like, he was on minute restriction. He was like, they were constantly like toning him down, like trying to like hold him back. And like with all those restrictions, first time playing in the league, he was like dominating anyone, whether it was Andre Drummond or DeAndre Jordan, like any big, it didn't matter. He was like already dominating them. So from that aspect, we were like, all right, well, clearly if this guy stays healthy, like he's going to be incredible, because at that point he wasn't even like, he didn't even know what he was doing. Like he was just going out there and playing off of like instincts and like, okay, I'm big, I'm just going to use my body. Now, like actually figured things out, and he's just like getting to his spots, getting fouled, drawing fouls, getting to the free throw line. He's just become so much more efficient with everything he does now. And you can see that maturity in him too. He's just, even just like the like pumping up the crowd, or like or the interaction with the crowd, maybe even that has like toned down a lot from him, to the point where you could just tell he's more, I think he's just matured a lot. He was such a like, he was such a young kid at first, and you know, get drafted by a team, and all of a sudden there's like this expectation to like lead this franchise to, you know, a championship. And a lot of these young guys just aren't ready for that like burden, or not that they're not ready for that burden. They're not ready to like carry themselves in the manner that the media expects them to, like, you know, like fit into that mold. And it's been cool to see Joel grow up, because you can just really tell he's like taking things a lot more seriously now. He's taking care of his body, working on his game. Like it's like you said, it's going to go down as one of the best big man seasons ever. And like, he's putting up 40, 50 points these last couple, like nothing, like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, doesn't matter. Like he's putting up 40 on your head. So yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see, like in terms of MVP, you said, like, I don't know who they're going to give it to. I also think like, man, LeBron's still having an incredible year. I know they're not winning as much, but it's going to be a tight MVP race. It's probably going to come down, you know, the records at the end of the year. A lot of times they reward, you know, whoever's on the best team. So we'll see. There's a lot of great players in the league right now. So it'll definitely be a tough race.
We kind of talked about, you know, you took us through like Joel, like that young Joel, and just that. I think the one thing you hit on was that mentality that a guy has to have to lead, to come in. I mean, Joel had to deal with it. Ben had to deal with it. Like they were it. Like everyone was waiting for these two, and they're like, this is the process. Like this is everything about the process. It's these two guys. So they have to be the two best players in the NBA. So there's a high expectation, especially for, you know, Joel kind of seems like he embraced it. Ben seems like it was like very overwhelming for him, because he's not that kind of like, I'm going to go out and drop 50 on your head. I have a lot of facets to my game. How do you think Ben, like that has become like an issue with him, is like his mentality and things like that. But having that pressure from such a young age to be like, hey, you're the man. Did you kind of see, was he struggling with that at all? Or was he just kind of like, you know, like, was he a pretty confident guy?
I think Ben's like very confident. He's definitely just in general, like he's a quiet guy. Like he's not one to like, he's not going to talk as much as Joel. He's not going to like go on social media and do these like that maybe Joel did throughout his career. Ben's just, I feel like, more reserved. But again, I think the issue in terms of like the way Philly fans have viewed him is, again, like it's viewed as like, you're a franchise saving player. Like we tanked to get you, so your job is to come in and lead us to a championship. And a lot of times the Philly fans in particular, they expect that to come in a way of scoring. And not saying that Ben can't score. Ben can score, just he's not one that's going to put up 30, 40 points, especially when it comes to like playoff time and the games in the half court. Ben thrives in transition. He thrives on defense. He thrives on passing. He thrives on rebounding. But if you slow the game down and all of a sudden you're playing in the half court, he can still be effective, but it's not going to come in the way of 30 points and like, you know, dominating on the offensive end, where Joel, you can throw the ball to him in the post and he can get you 40 like that. Yeah. So they're very different players in that aspect. And I think that's been the issue for Ben, is almost that expectation that Philly fans have put on him of like, you need to be this guy that can score and do all that. And when he hasn't, I think that's led to like this, you know, this kind of point where we're at now, where there's this friction. And it's unfortunate because he's so talented. Like he's a great, He's not even, I don't know. I think he's 25 years old. He's a 3-time All-Star. Like clearly like a talent level that's there, that's, at the top of the league. So it's just really unfortunate the way this whole thing is unfolded. Like you hate to see it.
Yeah. Even like hearing people talk about it still, it's like, well, you're not going to get a star for Ben Simmons. And I'm like, Ben Simmons is a star. Like, I understand. Like, I see it because I think as a basketball player, like we see it, like he can do so many things. And you're like, he's so talented, but because he's not shooting threes, you're like all pissed off. But like, and I always said, like, and listen, Philly fans are tough, but like, he didn't play great in versus Atlanta, but like he led the team. Like Joel didn't even play half the time in the Washington series, and they won that series based on Ben's like putting the team on his back. And I think there's just like a lot of unfairness that he gets lumped into. Because I was a big Ben Simmons fan. I'm worried about what's going on with like the mental health, and we talked about like the mental issues that he's having, but I'm worried that that's almost like, is he taking advantage of that system and being like, hey, I don't want to play in Philly, but shit, trade me and I'm fucking good to go. Or is it? Do you think that's just something that some players don't want to step on the court and have to deal with like the mentality of a city that like does not like them?
Yeah, again, only he knows like what's going on in his head. Like, I don't know. Like, there's definitely resources that are provided, like the NBA, especially now with guys that have opened up about the mental health struggles. Like, there's never been as many resources and help as there is now to get over those things. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like if they are able to trade him, is he just going to be like ready to go for another team? Or is it still going to be like, hey, I need some time? Like, again, only he knows that at the end of the day. And I think that's the tough part, like going back to like why they may not get a star in return from, is because like his market value has just been hurt so much by everything that's going on, because now even a team that trades for him, they're trading for him not knowing exactly what they're getting. Like, are they going to get someone who's immediately ready to like come into a game and play?
Yeah.
And like, who's to say that this situation doesn't happen all over again for another team? So like, yeah, before the Atlanta series last year, his trade value was very much in line with like, you could get another all-star player in return from him. But like with everything that's happened now, and whenever a player requests a trade, all they're no longer willing to pay full price, because they know that the Sixers are in a bind right now. Like the Sixers are doing anything they can to like make this happen. So teams are going to try to take advantage of that. So deadline is what, like 2 weeks away at this. So it's not just Philly, but league wide, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Ben's like Bitcoin, like shit's like tanking now, but could just skyrocket in a few weeks.
Never know.
Dude, like the Bitcoin thing is crazy. I know like Odell Beckham, would that be something? I have to have a whole podcast on what is it called? Cryptocurrency. Like, I don't fucking know enough about it, but like guys are being paid in cryptocurrency. It just seems like dangerous, but it's like, I guess, a gamble.
I didn't realize, like my friend sent me that thing about Odell the other day. Like, I didn't realize you could get paid in crypto, because I know some guys in the NBA tried it and the NBA said no. Wow. So maybe NFL is different, but like I know I played with Spencer Dinwiddie when I was in Brooklyn, and Spencer tried to I believe he signed like 3 years, 36 million or whatever, and he tried to get the Nets to pay him in Bitcoin, and I think Adam Silver stepped in and said no. But I was also like, I don't understand. Can't you just receive your paychecks as usual and buy the Bitcoin on your own? Like, I didn't see the advantage of getting paid in Bitcoin. But again, like the volatility short term, like I have Bitcoin, I own Bitcoin, and like the volatility short term is pretty intense. So it's like, if you're an investor that like you may need that money like 2 months from now, I would highly suggest that you don't buy any Bitcoin, because there's you could lose 50% of your value like that, as it had the past couple of weeks. but in a more long-term view, like if you're someone that's like willing to put money away and not touch it for 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's like, I think it's inevitable that its value is only going to increase
Yeah.
in the long term. So, but yeah, like the volatility is next level. Like you said, it's like, Ben, it's, you know, could be down, could skyrocket the next day. You really just don't know.
It is wild. I have some too. And the only reason I bought it is because friends were like, you need to buy this. And the same thing, they're like, if you have money to just put away, like not touch, like just buy this. So like I don't even check it. Like I mean I've checked it like the other day because people were texting like, holy shit. And I would look and I'd be like, oh Christ, don't even look at it, because it's just there's no sense looking at it, because I know eventually it will bounce back, but you're kind of
Sure.
like, that's it's a little scary.
For sure. And it's crazy to see like everyone has their projections. Like I was just reading an article before we started filming, and I believe it was someone at like Morgan Stanley or whatever, like an analyst was saying that they think it's very realistic that by 2030, one Bitcoin is worth $1 million. And then there's other people that are like, it's going to go to zero. Like crypto has no value, no nothing, like all a big pyramid scheme. But so it's like you see these like different ends of the spectrum, and it's like, again, it's hard. It's hard not to get like, you know, too far one way or the other, too high or too low. But again, you like see those analysts saying like it could be $1 million by 2030, and then you're like, all right, well, that sounds like a great investment because right now it's only 30,000. So I guess yeah, only time will tell.
It's crazy. Everyone thought they were tuning. They're like, oh, I can't wait for the process talk. You know, I can't wait to hear what Nick's up to now. And meanwhile, we're fucking getting financial advice to everyone.
Excellent.
Go buy Bitcoin. So take us into the G League. You know, you played in the bubble last year. You're back. You're in the G League now. You got the 10-day contract. Take us through what has been your experience so far in the G League?
To be honest, last year's experience was much better than I had initially expected. Mainly because I avoided the entire winter by being in the bubble in Florida. So I was like living it up. I was like at the pool all day. I was either at the pool working on my tan or playing basketball, and I was like, this is amazing. But no, this year getting back to a more normal season, travel and like not being in the bubble anymore. It's been great. And like our team here, we got a pretty good squad here. We've had a couple of guys get called up, so there's been a little bit of roster movement, but we have Jason Terry as our coach, former player who's got a lot of experience in the NBA. We have a good coaching staff backing him up. So it's been a positive experience. And for me, the main thing, like when I signed up to play for the G League, the main thing that I was looking for was an opportunity to, you know, play big minutes and be able to showcase myself to NBA teams. And from that aspect, it's been a success because, you know, I've received that opportunity game in and game out. And at the end of the day, that's all I could ask for coming into this was that opportunity to showcase myself. So, but no, like the talent level, like worldwide is, I mean, it's skyrocketing. Like there's so many guys in the G League that, you know, obviously this year more call-ups than there ever have been just because of COVID, but you know, so many guys at this level can be interchanged with guys in the NBA, and it's really all about opportunity. So on a day-to-day basis, you know, that the next team that you're playing might have 3, 4, 5 NBA caliber players, which is good. You're playing against high competition levels. You're always being watched and scouted. And obviously you have close access to, you know, the NBA teams. So,
Yeah.
You know, I think the NBA really has a good thing going with the G League in terms of the system now with two-way guys kind of coming in and out. Like it's just, I think the G League is just becoming more valued by the NBA and it's becoming more used. Like I think last year in the NBA finals, they were showing the stat, it was like 60% of the guys between Milwaukee and Phoenix, 60% of the guys had G League experience. So it's like, you're starting to see league wide, like it used to be maybe viewed as like this, oh, I'm playing in the G League and it's like a punishment almost, or like being demoted and like, oh man, like I have no chance of ever getting back. And now it's like, man, every day guys are getting called up and down and up and down. from that aspect, you're like, man, the opportunity is great. The opportunity is great. And not to say that going overseas is like a bad opportunity, because overseas, the talent level and the competition level is incredible. The salaries are great. There's so many positives about overseas, but I think the main benefit of the G League is like how close you are to the NBA. Like if the NBA is the end goal, I think G League is the place to be, just because of getting that call up is becoming so much more common. It's becoming way more common now. And for me, that's kind of what it's all been about, is giving me that opportunity to get back into the NBA.
We saw like Kenneth Faried, who's the teammate, like he was overseas and came back to go in the G League specifically so he could, have that opportunity. Because like you're like out of sight, out of mind in overseas, but like if you shoot right into the G League, it's like everyone's watching you at all times. And I think that's like a smart move on his part to be like, I'm coming back just to be in the fray.
Yeah, well, again, there's so many guys overseas that do have the goal of, getting back to the NBA. And I think this year in particular, when guys started seeing around Christmas time, like there was like 20 call-ups per day just because of the COVID case. I think a lot of those guys were like, damn, I got to get back to the US. Like, because, the opportunity is there, especially just with all the COVID stuff going on. So, but yeah, it's cool to see, we've had Isaiah Thomas on our team this year. We've had Lance Stevenson, Kenneth Faried now. Like, so many vets with like a ton of NBA experience, just kind of like trying to get back in. And a lot of them have been successful.
That's super cool. It is fun to kind of have, like they were, everyone was there shortly. I know Isaiah Thomas, he was there for like a game with you guys, and then he was like gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he played one game with us and the Lakers signed him the next day after one. Crazy.
Awesome. That is like exactly what the G League should be. It should be like, that's, when you need something, here's a player, cool. Like, let's go. Like these guys can all play. And I think it's becoming more apparent that everyone can play in the G League when you have these guys getting called up and dropping like 38, 40. It's like, it's showing the world like, hey, everyone can play. Like if you're here, you're playing professional basketball, everyone can play. It's just sometimes the opportunity, sometimes the situation. So that's super cool. Take us through that first, that year you went overseas, you were there for a little bit. Take us through that experience kind of in comparison to the G League, because obviously the call-ups and stuff have increased, but when you went overseas, went overseas because it was kind of like, this is a good place for me, good opportunity for me to play.
Yeah. Well, at the time I had just finished playing 5 years in the NBA and free agency hit, and I didn't have anything concrete with any NBA teams. And then on the other hand, my agent had a team called Baskonia in Spain, who's a EuroLeague team, offering me 7 figures to play, for 1 year. And at first I'm like, I didn't want to accept. I was like, I still was like wanting to explore the NBA, and like all my opportunities in the NBA were like non-guaranteed training camp deal, stuff like that, where, I could be just rolling the dice and then getting cut. And then it's like, you don't get paid, you don't have, nothing comes of it. And my agent was like, well, at a certain point, you got to go where you're wanted. And he was like, I would suggest going to play overseas. And he was like, man, there's no reason why, if you have a great year overseas, like you might be right back in the NBA, like, because again, maybe in season, you're not going to make that move, but those still heavily scouted. And every summer during free agency, there's plenty of guys who are playing in the EuroLeague who are now signing with NBA teams. So, from that aspect, I was like, all right, well, the money's great. It might not have been my goal to go overseas, but like could be a good stepping stone to go back. So I ended up going. Obviously it's a very different experience. Like you're going to a country, you don't speak the language, you're not familiar with anything. Like even just the teams, the players, the coaches, like I don't know everyone the way I know them in the NBA. Like, in the NBA, I don't know someone personally. I've seen them play enough where I feel like I just know everyone I'm playing. Also, that was the biggest thing for me. Also, you go overseas and I was like, I don't know who any of these guys are. I don't know their weaknesses. Like, and it was funny because at first I'm looking at a lot of these guys and I'm like, man, there's no way this guy's good. Like you just someone and they don't pass the eye test, and like we would start playing and then like They don't miss open shots. They're like super physical. They're like playing so hard. They're making all the right reads on offense. And you're just like, damn, these guys are good. Like why haven't I heard of these guys before? Like that was the biggest thing for me. Was it was eye opening, the talent overseas that just we were like, I was oblivious to. Like I consider myself a basketball fan, and I was like completely oblivious to a lot of these guys that could play at an NBA level. And again, going overseas, I at that time saw it as like being demoted. Like I saw it as like a negative.
Yeah.
And then got over there, I was like, all right, well, like in some ways, the game was like tougher than the NBA. Like it was harder to score there than it was in the NBA. And it's like represented in the scores of the game. Like the 2 minutes left and it's like 75-71. And it's like, who's going to get a bucket? Whereas in the NBA, it's like 120 to 115. And there's like 4 guys with 25 points. And it's like overseas, it's like, if you're scoring 15 points, like that's hard to do on a, you can't just stumble upon 15 points. Where I will say, as talented as the G League is, like you can have a bad game and score 20 points in the G League. Like it's just, there's not that level of defensive intensity. Whereas in Europe, like, man, they are competing super hard night in, night out. And again, they're not playing as many games. So I think every game holds a little more value.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest thing of my experience there, was maybe just like the competition level was way better than what I expected. Like way, way, way better, to the point where I always say now, you could replace the bottom 100 to 150 guys in the NBA with the top 100 players overseas, and there would be no difference in the quality of basketball played in the NBA. Like, if anything, I think it may be even better, because those guys, like, they just know how to play. They think the game. Whereas I think Americans, for the most part, are better athletes. I think overseas, they're just smarter players. And you could see that now too in like the FIBA competitions. Like if the US doesn't put together their like A team of like Ron, Steph, James Harden, Kevin, like if they don't put that team together, it's no longer like, hey, we're just going to blow everyone out. Like I think the World Championships the other year or whatever, the US put together like a team of like Jason Tatum and like big name players still. They finished 7th.
So crazy.
And it just goes to show, like, it's just the level of competition around the world has really increased. And I wasn't aware of that until I made that jump overseas. And I was like, damn, these guys are good.
You were hitting it on the head. There's so many guys who don't pass the eye test. Like you look and you're like, no fucking way. Like there was like a guy who was like balding, had like a neck beard and like not toned at all, like skinny, but like not toned hair in his arms. And he like dominated. I'm like, what is happening right now? You're like, he's just like so crafty and just like do weird things that you're just like, how, oh shit, they just scored. Like what just happened?
Even a guy like Luka Doncic, like Luka does the eye test. You look at him and you're like, there's no way. Like he's not really like toned. He's not really like, he doesn't look like he's super in shape. He honestly sometimes looks like a little bigger, like looks like he's a little like out of shape. And then you see him on the court and he's just blowing by guys, hitting step back threes, like game winners, you name it. And you're like, damn, like definitely, I didn't, you're not expecting that off the eye test, but clearly these guys, they've practiced their whole lives. They're tough. They've studied the game. They have the IQ, and that's helped them get to this level.
Nick, kind of wrapping up, we've talked about it. Like you're the best shooter I've ever witnessed in person. In terms of like just rebounding, like we talked about that before. I just go through him, like he hasn't missed forever. And, I don't say anything. I just keep going. But like your shooting is out of control. Who is the best shooter you've ever encountered?
I would say so. Yeah, when things got really put in perspective for me was when I was playing in Portland. Me, Seth Curry, and CJ McCollum, we would play this shooting game after practice. And basically the way the game works is like you start in the corner. There's the 5 spots around the arc. and you have to make 3 in a row from a spot to move on to the next. If you miss, your turn's over, and someone else, and it's like the next guy's turn. So you got to go around the arc and then come all the way back. So you end up having to go 3 in a row 10 times. We would play this game, and me, CJ, and Seth, like every day it would vary. Like one day Seth wins, one day I win, one day CJ wins. Like it was very even. And I'll never forget, like one day Damian Lillard came in to shoot with us, and he was like, let me join you guys for this game. And he just absolutely destroyed us. Like we're all good shooters, and like we just did not stand a chance. And I would say, like me personally, in terms of who I've played, like Steph Curry's the best shooter of all time.
Yeah.
But like who I've played with on the same team, Damian Lillard is the best shooter for sure. Like, and he doesn't get enough credit for it because he's viewed as like an all-star superstar player. But if you just focus on like shooting, the skill of shooting, he is unbelievable. And like the whole logo Lillard stuff, like that is not by accident or by mistake. Like he reps it every day. He reps it every day, 40 footers, step backs, like you name it. And like, I'm sitting there like watching him do it. And I'm like, why does it look like he's shooting a free throw from 40 feet? Like it's so effortless, so smooth. The rotation on the ball is like perfect. The arc is perfect every time. The flick of the wrist is like, it's the exact same motion. And for me, it was like a humbling experience because I consider myself a good shooter. And here I am, like, I'm like, dude, this guy's not even like a shooter. Like, that's not even his thing that he's like labeled as. And he's just way better than all of us at it. But also in the grand scheme of things, like he's now viewed as one of the best shooters in the NBA. Like in terms of his range, like it's really only him and Steph that are able to consistently hit from that like 35, 40 foot range. And it's weird because they're both smaller guys, but they make it look so effortless. They make it look so effortless.
That is crazy. Like you said, and it's funny because, you know, when people see them, they're so tiny, and people think, you know, that Damian Lillard's probably like their size. And I'm like, no, he's like, actually, he's taller than the average human. He's just, you know, looks small out there. But the way these guys able to do that.
Like 6'2". He's like 6'2". And he's like, most people don't realize this. Is why I didn't realize until I played on the team. His hands are massive.
Really?
Like hands are massive. And like, I think it helps him get like extra like rotation on the ball or something. But I remember seeing like, cause he would like go up and dunk, and like he would dunk so easily around the rim. And I'm like, why is he dunking easily with one hand at 6'2"? Like, cause at 6, if you're dunking with one hand, you normally have to be way over the rim to be able to like stuff it down. He had such control of the ball, like with one hand. And I think like that plays into his shooting ability, because it looked like it just effortlessly rolled off his fingertips. And I didn't realize like his, like, I don't have huge hands, but like his hand next to mine, like it was like a good inch or two longer than mine. I'm like, dude, you're 6'2". Why are your hands that big? Like, guys are freaks of nature.
Yeah, that is great. Nick, honestly, this is super cool. It's always fun to sit down with someone like I'm actually friends with, you know, and be able to talk and shoot the shit and talk your career and talk, you know, we talked a lot of Bitcoin and stuff, but it's been real. And honestly, we're super psyched for you. And we know great things are coming. I know it because I've seen you, kind of like you saw Lillard. I've seen it live. But we super appreciate you coming on, and this has been real.
I appreciate you, Kev. Thank you for having me on, and I'm looking forward to getting back to work with you this summer. Going to be hopefully we have some air conditioning going on this summer, because
we'll figure that out.
On last year, I'm not going to lie to you, there were some days where I was about ready to pass out, but and I really appreciate it.
Of course, there was those days where like I remember you were just like, we have to stop. Like my sneakers are sweating. Like you were sweats through your sneakers. I was like, yeah, I don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah, man, we had some grind days for sure, some dark days, but that's where the progress is made. So we'll get back to it this summer.
Love it, Nick Stauskas. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kev.